Welcome in. Coming up on today's program, 3 mistakes to avoid during a downturn. This is What's Next with Money, a program with smart insights to guide your financial decisions. Let's get started. Today we're talking about 3 painful mistakes that can really cost you money in a downturn. And the first one is not having or maintaining an emergency fund. This fund should be in cash. But where do you put it? It can be a savings account, checking account, as long as you don't use it for regular expenses. A bank, credit union, great place to put it. Even a brokerage firm, if you have a taxable account and money market check writing privileges, cash can sit there. Or the cash can be transferred easily to a bank or a credit union account. Now, the emergency fund needs to be replenished when used and often made larger as downturns are anticipated and people prepare. And Americans are actually really good at this. And in recent challenging economic times, they have done it. Now, if you want to get fancy, you could consider other short-term investments like a bank CD, certificate of deposit. You need to watch the term, any interest penalties for early withdrawal. CDs are also available from brokerage firms, fixed income departments. And talk to your advisor at the brokerage firm. And very often, those can be cashed out faster with fewer interest penalties than CDs from a regular bank or credit union. But just check it out. And carefully watch the word fixed income. Now, that's an important part of asset allocation, a place for bonds, short-term bonds. But even with short-term bonds, it's not a great place, short-term parking place for money because there's the risk of principal. The value can go up and down. Cash in a checking account, savings account is really just the best place right now for short-term parking place. Another way to look at short-term parking places for money are other expense categories that need to have cash ready in the next few years. And so, friends, I'm not talking about right now emergency funds. These are other funds or investments that have migrated to a cash position because the intended use and expense is nearing. Think about college tuition, the down payment for a house that you're about to do, maybe investment rental real estate purchases. So I know it's very frustrating because we've been in this low interest rate environment. And of course, rates now are going up slowly because we have high inflation. But with rates a little higher now, a parking place for this kind of middle term money, let's say a year or 2 out or 3 years out from needing to spend it, a CD might work fine. And you can match the maturity date and the size of the CD for that spending event. And as we said, house down payment, college tuition, room and board, health savings account dollars often should be in a place that's accessible, especially if you anticipate out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. If you're saving for a major home repair like a roof replacement or new HVAC system or an addition, that's important. Hey, car replacement savings fund. Be your own bank and don't borrow for that next used car that you might want. Now, the next issue is how much to put in an emergency fund. A lot of financial planning professionals talk about 3 months of salary or maybe even 6 months. Now, this depends how solid are your jobs and are you a 2-income family? Do you have other stable value investments that are liquid, like a mutual fund, maybe in a balanced fund or something, that if needed in several months, you could sell and gain the cash right away? And you could move to it for a health emergency, income disruption, major repair, insurance deductible, maybe the extra cost not covered by insurance, like a replacement for a total car. And oh my gosh, I have an example. I had a car totaled. My cars are used. Generally, this one actually had lower miles than normal. but I got a generous insurance settlement from the teenager's insurance company who broadsided it in daylight in clear weather. Now, here's the challenge. I had good auto coverage, good adjusters, but all their great work did not fully cover the cost to buy a newer used car. I had a ouch financial position, but at least I still have that replacement used car 10 years from the date of the accident. So my costs of holding have dropped and it's been great. But at the time, I wasn't planning on a replacement used car, and I had to fork out over $10,000 of extra money to meet the price level of that replacement vehicle. And that was something I was not planning on doing. I don't borrow money for cars, and I always now buy used cars. I haven't bought a new car in probably 30 years. So I pay cash. I hold my cars for a decade, sometimes longer, and I maintain them well. And by the way, in terms of holding cash, we have a great companion video called Can Cash Be an Asset? Now, we're talking about 3 mistakes to avoid during a downturn. The next painful mistake you can make in a downturn is ignoring and not managing taxes. This stuff. Downturns can turn into a tax-saving festival. You can rejoice and party on. But here are 3 tips. During a downturn, you can harvest tax losses. If you have stocks, mutual funds, ETFs in a taxable brokerage account, now we're not talking about retirement accounts right now, tax losses can be harvested to offset other gains, or annually you're allowed by the IRS to deduct up to $3,000 of net losses on your tax return. Now this is a great tool for rebalancing if you have some taxable accounts. You can sell some of your losers, reap a tax benefit, offsetting gains in others that you want to sell. As you rebalance, you could look at large positions you hold. Is this where you might have a large position in a company you know well, but it's too big. It's out of balance for the rest of your portfolio. You are facing company risk with that holding. So a downturn can be the opportunity to allow you to shrink your tax bill and redeploy the proceeds into a more diversified setting, lowering and eliminating that company risk of the stock. Now this works in a taxable account where that capital gains hit will not be as big. Another great tax opportunity is a Roth conversion. Now this can be a full or partial. Basically, you're taking a contributory IRA, one that is tax deferred, that when you withdraw from that eventually, you will pay ordinary income taxes on that. Now this is a Roth conversion is something I did a few times when I had a large tax loss from a fraud that I recovered from, and I had a lot of tax losses to eat up in 1 year. Or oftentimes I've done this in a down market, but I've done it piecemeal, incrementally. So by converting part or all of that contributory IRA to a Roth, it worked pretty well. Now you're going to have to pay ordinary income tax on the amount of the conversion, but the taxable IRA investment holding likely is much smaller because of the downturn, and thus the tax you will pay on that in ordinary income tax, that tax bite will be proportionally smaller as well. You will have then started on a sophisticated asset allocation strategy called tax diversification. And don't forget, the Roth IRA is income tax free for life. Now let me explain a little bit about tax diversification. This is a higher level thinking beyond asset allocation. It complements it. You have different types of taxable investments in your life. The tax-free thing we just talked about, the Roth IRA, Roth 401k. But other tax-deferred accounts like contributory IRAs, 401ks are subject to ordinary income taxes, as are most pensions plus our wages and salaries. In a taxable account, non-retirement, long-term capital gains rates can come in, and these are lower than ordinary income tax rates. This is for a taxable asset, a stock, even real estate, or gold that is held over 1 year in a taxable account. so you get a tax break by holding that longer. And don't forget, part of tax diversification and timing can be charitable giving, thoughtful timing of your retirement distributions, when to take gains, tax loss harvesting, puts you in control. But by boosting your IRA holdings, you've insulated yourself from possible rising tax rates, both federal and state. And where to place certain assets that pay ordinary income. This, along with charitable giving, the timing of retirement distributions, when to take gains, gives you more flexibility to keep your tax rates and obligations planned and the timing under your control. But check this out. Back to tax diversification. By boosting your Roth IRA holdings through conversions, for example, or regular Roth IRA contributions, you insulate yourself from possible rising tax rates, both federal and state. Let's go a little deeper into tax diversification. Where do you place certain assets that pay out ordinary income returns and are taxable at ordinary income tax rates? A lot of these you want to keep out of a taxable account because you want assets that can enjoy favorable capital gains tax treatment in those. So the concept here, and a lot of high-level great CFP professionals advise this, you take those assets that pay out ordinary income returns annually and you place them inside a retirement account, IRA, 401k, or even in a Roth. And here are some examples of those assets that throw off more ordinary income. REITs, which are real estate investment trusts, great for inflation protection. Junk bonds, high dividend paying stocks, not in all cases, but some. Actively managed funds that throw out a lot of returns. Taxable bonds and bond funds. Now, one type of bond or bond fund you would not put in a retirement or tax deferred account are municipal bonds or muni bonds because they're federal tax exempt. And if you bought a set of muni bonds or a bond fund that is state specific, you may be state tax exempt. So you want those in your taxable brokerage accounts. TIPS is another one that throws out a lot of ordinary income. Multi-asset funds like target date funds, another approach. A great financial advisor once said, missing out on favorable long-term capital gains treatments for stocks, mutual funds, gold, ETFs, and real estate is like turning gold to lead. You want to encourage the proper use of investments in those taxable brokerage accounts to throw off the long-term capital gains, lowering your overall tax hit, and letting the ordinary income returns happen within retirement accounts, which are subject to ordinary income taxes anyway. Now, here's another big area to manage on the tax front, and that's estimated quarterly taxes. If you are retired, you have no or very few income withholding opportunities from wages or salaries. If you own a small business, you might have to pay quarterly estimated tax payments. Your tax preparer and many financial advisors and their tax software packages can calculate this for you. But you also elect to have withholding from Social Security checks, pension payments, retirement distributions, even taxable dividend payouts from individual stock holdings. You could elect to have withholding there if you wanted to. And many states have an income tax, so these estimated tax payments not only go to the federal level, they flow to the state level as well. And again, if you don't have adequate tax withholding. So we have a great video on taxation that I think will help explain this, and I think it'll be really helpful. And don't forget to hit that subscribe and smash that like button. This helps move more content to more people and others who want to learn, and it's free, non-commercial, and non-conflicted. Now, our third painful mistake to avoid is not investing when the world has gone crazy. Investing can be complicated, especially when humans are involved, and they generally are involved. It's very emotional. Greed and fear are as old as the scriptures. Here's some basic principles that are in order during crazy and even normal times. Save more, spend less, eliminate revolving consumer debt, have tax awareness. Don't do anything stupid like fraud, friends and family overreach into your accounts, demanding the gifting of your money. I know there are special circumstances and cases where this is in order, but it can't be excessive. It'll erode your net worth. Don't buy securities on margin, which means borrow money. Invest regularly, diversify, keep costs low, limit risks, turn off excessive media, like the coverage of negative market news. Like, check this headline out from a past Wall Street Journal article in 2008 when we had the big housing recession. Market's 7-day rout leaves U.S. reeling. So this was markets and the financial Great Recession crisis driving the headlines. This was the lead inciting incident for market downturn and volatility. This affected geopolitical events, all from that crazy housing crisis and those improperly set mortgages. Author Morgan Housel notes in one of his books, The Psychology of Money, all past market crashes, often happening around downturns, are viewed as opportunities. But think what he's saying. He's saying in the rearview mirror, all past market crashes like this stuff are viewed as opportunities. But all future crashes are viewed as risks. Future crashes are viewed as risks. So just think about where you're sitting right now. Time horizon is key for tolerating market corrections and coming out on the other side intact with more shares acquired at lower prices. If your time horizon is long for retirement and other investing goals, generally 5 years out is one benchmark, then negative market events should be expected. The money you need sooner, a few years or less, should not be at risk in equities and stocks. Think about volatility. This is the ups and downs of the market. It provides regular opportunities, and thus we are rewarded and command the higher returns expectations. There's no free lunch in economics or investing. And if you try to time the market, you have to be right twice. And you may be timing also ignoring tax consequences that we just covered. You've got to be right twice. Number one, you've got to know when to sell. Number two, you got to know when to get back in. And we can't let awful external political events and fear drive us. I know we've been through a lot. And sometimes these geopolitical, international, or even domestic events seem to be happening with more frequency and rapidity. But remember this, we got through this. America under attack, 9/11. The markets rebounded. The actual markets were actually closed for several days because of the physical infrastructure challenges there around Wall Street. But we got through it. We've been through wars, many, many terrible things. And we have a great video called Financial Insomnia that gives you a set of tools to work through this and to put these kind of economic uncertainty events in perspective. So folks, be sure to hit that subscribe and that like button, and don't forget to share. And remember, new episodes of What's Next with Money are posted on Thursdays.